All right, cool. All right, so let's break down these combos then. I guess I mean, I'm just gonna go. Um, so the way the combos work in this game, especially with characters like Primal Flow, is that like you can basically put things together willy-nilly. Like you can sort of combine things very easily with Primal Flow, especially because each ability has its own follow-up. And one of the things that's really important as well when it comes to Primal Flow specifically is that in the PvE you have this special follow-up attack, and if you press left click at a specific timing, it gives you a sort of perfectly timed, I think it's called Quietus Blow. I think that's what it's called in English, but you can do this in PvP as well, which is actually counts as an iframe. So, for example, if I were to do this, delay this, you can see how I do that follow-up at the very end, and it makes my character disappear momentarily. And there is one of the talents for Primal Flow. When you hit this, it actually applies 35% healing reduction, which is nice, although it's not actually the talent that you really want to go for. But that does exist for sure. But generally, you can put a lot of combos together without really, knowing all that much about what's most optimal. Generally, though, there are certain optimal combos, and one of the things that you've got to be mindful of is that even though, if excluding the combo break ability, this one, your G button, excluding this, there is a mechanic in the game that will allow you to combo break without using this, where once you've been in a combo staggered for a certain amount of time, it then will fill this bar above your head, and then once it's full, it'll turn green, allowing you to break out of it, like this. Perfect. So the bar's filling up, and at the end, it gives you this little prompt right here below your stamina bar, or below your resource bar, allowing you to dodge out. So knowing when that is going to be filled up for the person that you're comboing is quite important, and it's something that starts to matter a lot more as you get higher and higher up the leaderboard, and as you start getting better and better, fighting better players. So knowing when this is going to be full for the person you're comboing is really useful, because it also allows you to potentially catch them when they do the dodge out. So you can do this dodge out, but you can get almost immediately caught afterwards if you're not careful. One good thing about it, though, is that when you do the dodge out, depending on which direction you hold, so WASD, you can press forward, backwards, left, right, whatever, and you will dodge in that direction. And then if they continue like pressing buttons, and if the button that they're pressing is an ability, and they keep attacking you, you can do the dodge and then deliberately dodge back into the attack that they're doing to try and get that freeze that happens whenever you dodge an ability. In the previous video that I made for Honor of Kingsword, I explained how when you dodge an ability as opposed to a light attack, you actually freeze your opponent, and it allows you to get a punish off. So that is another thing that you can try and take advantage of. But when it comes to combos, for Primal Flow specifically, one of your bread and butters is using the hold LMB, the hold left click, this sort of spinning move, and you can do it in such a way where it will continuously like spin around like this, and this becomes a pretty integral part to some combos. So what you can do, for example, if you do happen to catch this, let's say, or if you do have, I mean, usually when you're combo starting, or when you get your opener, one of the best ways to do it with Primal Flow is the hammer. Now this is pretty slow, and it can be dodged, obviously, and you can get frozen, but one of the really nice things is that you can animation cancel virtually everything in the game, so you can try and bait your opponent by starting the animation and cancelling it before the active frame starts, meaning that you basically bait them into dodging, and then you get to use it again, like this. You can do this a few times, but you have to be careful, because if you dump all of your stamina to do it, and they didn't have to use any of their stamina, you get put into a disadvantaged state. You get put at a stamina deficit, and you have to be careful not to send anything out that if they dodge, you're gonna screw yourself over. But this is your typical like combo starter. You can open up with the hammer into one of these charged horizontals into an E with your spear, You can do another one, but canceling that hold LMB towards the end of the animation before it knocks them down, because when you do hit this, it'll knock them to the ground. So you want to make sure that you cancel the animation of that hold left click just before it finishes, so that you can then lift them with the second part of your E, second part of the spear. Now, one other thing that's important to know about the spear is that you might be playing and like trying to use it, and it's not actually like taking you off the ground to hit them in the air. And I have a feeling that it's something to do with one of the talents, but even if it's not one of the talents, or if you don't take that talent, if it is to do with that, as long as you delay your left click a little bit, like until they've actually sort of been lifted into the air properly, you will always follow them up to it. And then you want to do that perfectly timed left click follow up. And if you were to do this, right, let's say you did this, left click, cancel, delay, do this, they're going to be able to dodge out at the end. So this is like a standard bread and butter combo. And as you can see right here at the top, I did, you know, just under a third of his health bar on Primal Flow. Primal Flow actually has, I think, the largest health pool in the game. So it's a pretty significant amount of damage. So that's one of your strings that you can look to go for. But as I said before, you can mix and match a lot of stuff. So let's say you manage to get the E startup raw, like you catch them with this. You can go, boom, lift, follow, and you can catch this. But they're going to, so I'm doing it a little bit slower, so he was actually able to dodge out a little sooner than he should have been. But you're able to actually get the follow-up of the Q, the second part of the Q, but if you did the perfect timed left click right here, so let's say you do this. If you don't do any charged horizontal attacks, if you don't do any charged left clicks, you can do that full string. But doing the left clicks actually is quite important because it applies a debuff to the person you're hitting. So back to what I was saying. So with the E, if you catch this, you do the charged horizontal, you catch that right there, and you don't do that follow-up, you can always get both of the Qs. However, if you do the follow-up, then the second part of the Q, if you did a charged horizontal after the initial E, won't be a true combo. So that's important to know. Like, you need to be careful about just sending out these attacks like constantly. Especially, let's say, for example, you're very low HP and you want to make sure that your Q follow-up actually lands, because your Q follow-up on Primal Flow actually heals you a considerable amount. You want to make sure that, let's say you're in a clutch situation, you're low HP, and you don't have, and you have both of these, and you manage to get this opener. Making sure that you secure this so that you can actually get the heal can mean, you know, it's the difference between maybe winning or losing. So making sure that you don't just mash and just send it and do the same combo every single time. You have to think about when it's best to do certain things. Because realistically, let's say you're full HP. If you were to do the charged horizontal combo with the, let's say you get the E spear, you get the charged horizontal, you get the lift, and then you do the follow-up, and then you hit the Q in the air. But obviously, because you've done all of that, you're not going to be able to land the second part of the Q. You can actually keep the Q and, you know, hold on to it for the next part of the fight. You can look to potentially catch them with the second part of the Q a little bit later on, a little bit after the combo, to go for another catch. So speaking of when you do get the Q catch, so let's say you catch this right here. This is also really long range. If you catch this right here, you can actually go directly into an E if you haven't used it already, obviously, right? So you can, as long as you don't like delay the Q2. So let me show you. All right, so if you do this, don't delay the Q2, you can send that right here. and then get a sort of a left click in the sky at the end right here. Now, this is a pretty solid combo, and it's a typical thing that you'll see at the start of a fight as well. Like, at the very beginning, when you load into an arena, you'll see Primal Flow players doing this sort of bouncy shit, right? And then you'll see them pop their Q before the barrier goes down, so that they can look to try and catch you in the opening and force out your combo breaker, force out your G, you know? So it's definitely a very common thing that you'll encounter. But you can dodge this. It's, as I actually just happened to do. You can theoretically dodge it on reaction, but it is extremely fast, as you can see. Like, that's very quick, and there's not that much of a prompt as to when it's coming out. One tip that I could give you is that if you see the Primal Flow that you're about to play against using their Q before the game starts, you could run up, and once you get into range, so like when you're far range from your opponent, you can see like this little dot appears on them. That means that if they were to use the Q2, it would catch you, and vice versa if you were to do it to them. So once you get into this range, you can use the charged LMB, and then you can do one dodge option select. You can dodge to try and predict the timing on it, or you can open up by using this, expecting them to send the Q, and then you'll armor through it. So you can definitely play around with this. There's a lot of depth when it comes to Honor of Kings World PvP. There's a lot more that meets the eye. Like, I don't know. Like, I say this because there's a lot of people who say that there isn't any depth in this at all, and it just looks very basic. It's not. There's so much more than people think there is. But touching on when I mentioned how you can just use the hammer. The hammer is super armor, and you can see right here when I use a super armor move, it makes my character model glow blue. So that's one indication as to whether or not the person or the attack that you're doing or the attack that your opponent is doing has super armor. There is also a gold super armor that exists, but it's only on certain things. You can see it obviously on the combo breaker. That gold sort of glow around your character, that's the gold super armor, which has priority over the blue super armor. So there are some ways to get this. One of the ways that you can get this, when you parry something on Kaizer, for example, if you parry just a basic thing, let's say you parry your own Q, if you do this follow-up, you can see how it's only blue. However, if you parry something that has super armor, so if you parry something that has like higher tier super armor, it will give you a parry follow-up that has higher tier super armor. But yeah, I'll try and find some footage to demonstrate that later on. But yeah, when it comes to Primal Flow, generally using your charged horizontals is your bread and butter. You want to be sort of using this a lot. And you can, if you ever catch one of these, it will always lead into one of your abilities. Now, if you're just looking to do some basic stuff, if you manage to catch this, for example, you can do Q into another one, into the follow-up, and this is a true combo as well. And you can do the sort of teleporting thing afterwards. Same thing with the hammer. It will lead into pretty much everything. If you do the hammer follow-up, however, this hammer follow-up is a little bit too slow to get after doing one of them. So that's one of the few things that you can't do. I think the last thing to really touch on when it comes to Primal Flow is his ultimate. And his ultimate is... it's one of the best, but also one of the worst ults in the game, I would say. Because it does an absurd amount of damage. But it's a single hit, which is good and bad. It's a double-edged sword. Does a lot of damage, but actually securing the ult and making sure that it actually connects can be difficult. So one way that you can actually do this is when you do happen to catch a perfect dodge on someone's ability and they get frozen, if you're fast enough at reacting to when you perfect dodge them and you have your ult available, you can secure the ult confirmation. Grok, try and hit me with an ability. No, this one's very hard to do. So, if you catch this and then simultaneously press your ult, you can confirm that. It will be a true combo. Now, another thing to do with the perfect dodging thing, you'll see that whenever you do it, it gives you a prompt to press left click, and you'll do a certain follow-up depending on the character that you're playing. For Primal Flow, it's a sort of spinning hammer attack that is pretty solid, and it does do quite a bit of damage. Another thing to note is that if you do catch the Primal Flow, if you do get the perfect dodge, hit me with the follow-up, you can do your hammer 1, your R1 into the parry follow-up, or into the perfect dodge follow-up, and that's also a true combo. Although this isn't always worth it, because your R1 is actually a very important neutral tool, but if you're unsure as to whether or not your opponent's going to die from this, and you think that it might actually kill them if you do get that extra little bit of damage, it can be worth to do. So, good to know, for sure. But with this parry, or with this, I keep saying parry, with this perfect dodge follow-up, one of the ways to avoid having to actually do the parry follow-up, especially on Primal Flow, is by waiting until the bar is almost empty. Because when you perfect dodge somebody, there's going to be a bar that appears above their head that will tell you how long they're going to be frozen for. So, Grok, quickly do the R2. So you can wait a little bit, and then catch this, and then go into your combo. You know, you can do that. And then go, you know, etc., right? Or you can use your... look to use your Q, or any sort of different combination instead. Another thing that you can do to avoid having to do the perfect dodge follow-up is by tab swapping, which... let me see if I can demonstrate that as well real quick. So if you tab swap... you can do a full combo on your other character instead of having to do one on the one that you hit the perfect dodge with. And you can always do like a short string with your other character, and then swap back, and it will have disappeared. It won't force you to do the perfect dodge follow-up. Other than that, I would say that pretty much sums up most of the basic stuff for Primal Flow. Again, great thing about this game, you can mix and match, and you can sort of do combos on the fly, but when it comes to doing optimal things, there are definitely optimal strings that will allow you to do as much damage as possible without in the short period of time that you have, if they don't have their combo break before they get the green combo breaker. So also one last thing, touching on the green combo breaker, the green combo break bar fills up at different rates depending on what it is that you're hitting them with. So one, like if you hit lots of light attacks will actually fill up the bar, the green combo break bar, slower than abilities will. So playing around with that and being mindful of that sort of formula and how that works will allow you to like intuit the best way to do to execute combos and come up with new strings yourself to swap in and out. So for example, let's say you get Kaizer. Let's say you get the Kaizer E. Say 1, 2, 3 E into tab swap. You can actually do this full string. I screwed it up slightly just now, but you can tab swap back and forth between characters to do certain combos. Like, if you ever catch an E with Kaizer, you can almost always do a follow-up right here. Also, actually, one last thing I forgot to mention. The dodge left click on Primal Flow is one of its best follow-up moves. If you catch the Q... Hold on. Sorry, no, if you catch the E... You can do, instead of just doing a normal charged left click, you can actually do a dodge left click into the charged left click into the E, which can be optimal, can be worth doing. However, as I said before, you're building up more of that, you know, green combo break bar by doing this, and Primal Flow's abilities do a lot of burst, so it can be more worthwhile to just use the bursting ability instead of doing the 1 or 2 extra light attacks. Alright, so now that we've gone through Primal Flow, For the most part. There's probably a couple things that I may have left out, but let's let's go on to Kaizer. So Kaizer, I would say he's one of the he's a very solid character and one of the characters that you'll see paired with Primal Flow, Sword of Stars, Frosty Bloom, Garo, all sorts of stuff. Like you can pair him with most characters, right? And that's largely because his kit is defensive in some senses. Obviously, you have a parry. It's one of the only parries in the game at the moment. But and also because it has healing on its Q, so when you throw out the Q and then when it comes back, it will heal you. And also you can use this, interestingly, you can utilize this to heal your other character. So if you were to throw out the Q, you can tab swap, and then when the Q comes back, it will heal the character that you're on at the time. So very, very useful. It gives you a little bit of sustain, a little bit of defenses. You know, it's definitely very nice. So if I send the Q, tab swap, you can see how it healed the Primal Flow just now. So, definitely pretty solid. But he can function as a sort of focal point of a team comp on his own. Like he can do a significant amount of damage. Like the E, the big like single hits as well can do a lot of damage. But one of your bread and butters with Kaizer typically is you catch the Q, and either you can do a couple things. You can catch the Q into and then parry it on the way back into this 1, 2, 3 into E, and then do the E follow up. You can do you can send out the Q and then instantly use your E. Or actually, I mean, you can send out the Q, catch 1, 2, 3 into E like this as well. Or you can use the Q and then simply tab swap into your other character. So like you can tab swap into Primal Flow, into Sword of Stars, into all sorts of different stuff. So like if I were to do this, if I were to do this, you can see how it's essentially basically a ranged combo starter. However, the Q, it is very dodgeable. It's obviously less dodgeable and less reactable at closer range. However, it is very, very solid and actually has quite high priority. And one of the things that I would say makes him a little bit stronger than I think he should be. I think the Q's priority, if they were to nerf Kaizer in a way, in some way, I think nerfing the priority of the focus on the Q is probably one of the best ways to go about it. But as I said, yeah, you can use the Q into all sorts of things. You can use the Q into E like this. Boom. You can use the Q into E and then tab swap into your other character and continue a combo string. There's a lot of things that you can do. But outside of that, he is quite basic in how much he can do on his own. But one of the before you hit your E, before you do Q, or after you do Q, whatever it might be, you always want to do 1, 2, 3. So you can do 1, 2, 3 Q, 1, 2, 3 E, tab swap, whatever you want, you know. But it's 1, 2, 3. If you do more than 3, then it won't be a true combo anymore. So if I were to do 1, 2, 3, 4, you can see how that delay, the last hit does do a little bit more damage and will knock them down, but it's not a true string. One thing that I have yet to truly explore is the hold left click on Kaizer. When you do a hold left click, you actually do this sort of upward slashing attack, and if you were to catch this, you know, stop moving, bro, you'll actually lift them off the ground. So it is something that I think with more time and more like exploration, I think there will be ways to actually get this out. But I think, for example, if you were to do a Q, this is not a true combo, for example. I think if you do E, like, you're not going to be able to do the charged left click because it forces you to do that sort of wide slashing attack that will knock them away. So there's definitely something that you can do with this. I just haven't truly figured it out yet. One good thing to note, though, is that if you do that initial attack, right, you can hold W or move around and then use the follow-up, use that sort of uppercut slash later on, so you can delay the second part. However, being able to actually catch this is pretty difficult in neutral, as if they were to just send out an ability or send out, you know, another light attack, it would clash and you would bounce off of each other, and then you'd go back to a more neutral state. So it's worth trying. It might be worth like trying to explore it and see what you can do, but unfortunately I haven't, you know, I don't think many people have really found too many uses for it. Now when it comes to the Z, the sort of the special ability that you get once you've charged up this resource bar, unfortunately there aren't all that many ways to actually get to use this, because if you just do it in neutral, if you just do it straight up, it's quite slow, quite reactable, and very easy to perfect dodge. However, one way that you can secure it, obviously, is if you get a perfect dodge on your opponent and you have it available, you can use it then, before you do that sweeping attack that you're given when you do the perfect dodge. You can definitely send it out while you're in ult, for sure, because in ult it's the animation is slightly different, and it's full super armor, it's fully gold and everything. So it's worth trying, but it's hard to really make use of. You can't combo it off of your E, unfortunately. I think that being able to actually fit the Z into combos is quite difficult. There are ways to do it, but it's hard to do. But you have to parry? No, it doesn't work after parry. You chase off the knockdown. Well, if you do it to chase off the knockdown, though, because if the second part is what you perfect dodge, yeah, it tracks very well. So the Z tracks really well, but if you send it after knockdown, most of the time, as long as the person that you're fighting against has stamina available, they're gonna be able to dodge it. Oh, that's something to mention, actually. If you do happen to catch the Z, it does knock them up quite considerably, so you can get quite a lot of follow-up damage off of it. Okay, so with the ult, basically what it does, it augments all of your light attacks into, like, it does much more damage, but they are much slower as well. I mean, basically, when it comes to Kaizer ult, he's just the same skills that you have without the ult, but slightly enhanced. And you can still be perfect dodged whilst in your ultimate when you send out abilities. The Z gets its super armor increased to like gold super armor, and it does do a bajillion damage. But the light attack string is definitely different. You can obviously catch with it, but it's not something that you're really comboing with. But the ultimate is basically just a beefed up version of the base kit. But yeah, not too many combos with the ultimate. Hey guys, that footage was all recorded live on stream. Be sure to go and check out the stream. I'm gonna be streaming a lot of Honor of Kings World for the rest of the alpha, as well as probably afterwards on the Chinese server. But we'll see where things go. Hopefully we'll be getting another alpha soon afterwards, or just the full release of the game. Regardless, if you have any questions about anything that I talked about in this video, do comment down below, or come and ask me on stream. The link will be in the description. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and also be sure to let me know what you guys would like to see next in terms of PvP, combos, whatever it might be. Anyway, see you later. Take care.